Hi boys and girls, it's Mrs. Snell, and this week I will be with you for the week working on your ELA reading lessons. So today, if you can get out your packet and take out the passage that says the class vote. Today's date is May the 11th, so we're going to be working on this story. So if you need to pause, go ahead and pause. I'm going to read over the passage and then we're going to go over the answers together. All right, here we go. So first we'll start by putting your name at the top like we always do in class. And I'm going to read the passage, the class vote. Mrs. Kimber's class is working hard to earn a reward. Every time they did something quickly, quietly, or respectfully, they would get a marble in the class jar. Once they earned 20 marbles, they would celebrate. Mrs. Kimber's class has 17 marbles so far. She decided it was time to take a class vote on how they would celebrate. She asked the class for ideas. "I know," said Kate. "We can have an extra recess." "I think we should have a movie day," said David. "What about a pajama party?" asked Mario. Mrs. Kimber wrote all of the ideas on the board. They would take a class vote. Mrs. Kimber would count up the votes, and the idea with the most would win. The class closed their eyes. When Mrs. Kimber called out the idea they wanted, they would quietly raise their hands. After all the votes were in, the class had decided they wanted a pajama party. How fun! So before I get started here, I want to go over a couple of the words that I would call a vocabulary. And the first one here I'm going to look at is the word reward. The class wanted to earn a reward. And a reward, boys and girls, if you don't know, is like a prize. What prize would they get for earning their marbles in the jar? The next word I would look at here as a vocabulary word is recess. And recess is when we can go outside and play or do something fun. I think that should cover any of the words that you might not know. Now we're going to go down to the questions at the bottom of the page and answer the questions about our passage. Why did the author write this passage? When Mrs. Smell thinks of that question, I think of our P-I-E, pie. Did the author write to persuade us to do something? Or did the author write this to inform us of something? Or did the author write this passage to entertain us? And from what we learned in class, when the author writes a fiction passage, it's usually to entertain us. And this is a fiction passage. And I would say the author is both entertaining and giving us some information about how the class won or what the class decided to do with their prize. So here, why did the author write this passage? The author wrote the passage to entertain us. So the author wrote the passage to entertain us with a story about how the class earned marbles and how they voted to spend their reward. Let's go down to the next one. Answer each question below. Highlight the answer to each question with the correct color. So if we take a look at the first one, it says the color is red. I'm going to get out my red marker here And the question says, the author wrote the passage to A, let everyone have an extra recess, B, explain what a pajama party is, C, talk about earning rewards, or D, explain how to do something fairly. So if we take a look at the passage and our choices, the answer that makes the most sense is that the author D, explain how to do something fairly. And what the class did up here is they took a vote. So they decided, the class decided they would take a vote. And when you vote, everybody has an opportunity to give their opinion, and whichever was given the most vote will be the prize. Let's go ahead now to the next one here. And the color this time is blue. So I'm going to get my blue marker. The genre of this passage is A, fiction. And if you remember, fiction means fake. B, fantasy. Fantasy is when we tell a story using animals usually, or something that is make-believe. A mystery, or non-fiction, which means real. And if you take a look and reread the passage, you're going to find out that this is fiction or make-believe. Sometimes in class we might say realistic fiction because this could really happen, but it didn't. Someone made up this story. So we could say realistic fiction, but the best choice in our answers is A for fiction. I'm gonna put down my marker there. This crayon here says yellow. Why does the author talk about different rewards the students want to do? A, to show that students do not always agree with one idea, or B, to show that the students shouldn't get a reward. And the reason the author talks about different rewards that the students want is to show that students do not always get their way. So and Mrs. Smell can go back up to the passage, and we saw that there were a few ideas. Have an extra resource, have a movie day, have a pajama party. Those were in some of the choices. And the winner was they were going to have a pajama party because it received the most votes. So not everyone got their choice, but the one that had the most votes was a pajama party. So not everyone got their way. And the last one here, number 4, why do the kids raise their hands quietly? So if we go up to the passage here, it says that Mrs. Kimber wrote all of the ideas on the board. They would take a class vote. Mrs. Kimber would count up the votes, and the idea with the most would win. The class closed their eyes when Mrs. Kimber called out the idea they wanted. They would raise their hands quietly. So I would say that the children raised their hands quietly so that they could take a fair vote. If everyone was shouting out, people might choose an answer that their friend chose. So we would say the kids raised their hands quietly to take a fair vote. And Mrs. Smale wrote that in a complete sentence using words from the question in my answer. The kids raised their hands quietly to take a fair vote. It wouldn't have been fair if everyone was shouting out. So my sentence began with a capital letter and ended with a period. All right, boys and girls, so that was our reading lesson for today. I also pulled up our paper that you can use if you would choose, if you're going to do the writing lesson for today. Make a list of as many words as you can that rhyme with the word ball. So tomorrow when I go over our next reading passage, I'll make a list of words that rhyme with the word ball, and we will discuss the answers, some of my answers, and maybe you have some that I didn't think of that maybe you could share with me through a message. So everyone have a good rest of your Monday, and I will be back and see you again tomorrow.